Once you start attracting Geofilter clients, there's going to be several questions that you'll need to ask your client before you get started, just to make sure the whole process runs smoothly. It's important to get the information for all the common questions up front so you can quickly provide an accurate quote to them based off their needs, as well as to cut down on the back and forth of email so you can jump straight into the project without wasting a lot of time. A great way is to have a questionnaire form on your website that people can go to submit a request to you. So when they submit that request, it is already submitting their information that you'll need to provide that accurate quote and to also start their project as soon as possible. I've used a questionnaire on my website to collect all of my Geofilter requests since I've started, and over the course of working with Geofilter clients and getting a lot more requests, I've gradually edited down and added different questions in order to only focus on the necessary questions to ask before you get started. So in order to show you the type of questions you can ask, I'm going to jump onto the computer and walk you through the refined set of questions I've asked on my questionnaire and why they're important. Alright, so now we're on my website, and this is the web page that people go to when they want to submit a request that I design them a Geofilter. So I like to start off this page by first giving them the feeling that they're in the right place by just reiterating what the page is for. So I first have a banner that says Snapchat filter design. So it's going to just reiterate the fact that this is for Snapchat filter design. And then this little small paragraph that's just telling them what I'm going to do for them, and then a button to just get started by filling out the questionnaire. However, if they happen to have a common question, I'd rather address that up front rather than having them submit a request just to ask that question, and also to keep me from answering some of the same questions through email. So what you can do is then below the intro statement have a list of the common questions and a little bit of an overview of the process. So as you can see, we have a breakdown of the process here, which is to first submit a request. Number 2 is to get a quote, and number 3 is the work will be done and they'll get their Geofilter. So this is going to give them a general overview of the process and let them know where they're at in the process right now. And this would be number 1 to submit a request. So they know that they're about a third of the way there. So it kind of gives them a sense of ease of where they're at in the process and kind of gives them an idea of the progression of the rest of the process. And from there, I have some frequently asked questions and testimonials. So what you can do is just take those frequently asked questions and then provide an answer right on the page so they can get that answer right away. So some of the common questions are, how long does this process take? How much will my Geofilter be? How does the complete process work? And then there's a section of customer testimonials to give them an idea of what other customers have experienced already. So by clicking on these buttons, it's going to expand into my answer, and then they could click it again to collapse it. And this is just a way to get rid of a lot of the vertical space and only expand it when people have a question. And so this way, if they don't really have these questions, then they could just go down to the Geofilter request. Now, this isn't necessary, but I found it just looks a little bit cleaner. And then here you have some of the customer testimonials, and I like to give an example of the Geofilter and then a testimonial below. And then we can collapse this. And if you want to read all of these answers, you can go to dangonzales.com/Snapchat Geofilter request, and a link to that page should be below. And then we have the Geofilter design request. Now again, you don't have to have a complex questionnaire on your website to get started. However, I find this really helps to get all the basic information up front so you don't have to do all of this in email, which you'll likely have to do because this is all the information that you'll probably need for each Geofilter. So what I use for my website is I use WordPress as my content management system, and on top of that, I use a plugin called Gravity Forms, and you can find that at gravityforms.com. And this is a great way to create customized forms on your WordPress powered website. And this also has conditional logic to where if someone answers a certain question, they may be prompted for more questions down the line that's more specific to them based on their responses, or actually remove questions later down the form if they don't apply to them. Now you can get this plugin at gravityforms.com, or if you don't happen to have this plugin, then you can just simply ask these questions in email. So let's go back to the form. So first I ask for their first and last name so I know who they are. Then I ask for their email address so I can email them. And then I ask, where did you hear about me? So I can get an idea of where people are finding me and hearing about me. So after they answer the basic information, they'll then be asked the question of what type of geofilter that they're interested in. And you can see if I go ahead and click on any of these options, the conditional logic will then kick in and it will prompt them with questions that are specific to the type of geofilter that they want. So if I click on personal geofilter, they'll be prompted with the information that is specific for a personal geofilter. Same thing with a business geofilter, it will change. And then a community geofilter, it will also change. So let's start off with a personal geofilter. So after they select the geofilter that they're interested in, I like to provide a little bit of information that is specific to their type of geofilter, and that will give them a little bit more information when they fill out their questionnaire. So since personal geofilters are going to be on-demand geofilters, they're going to have a submission fee. So in this note section, I'm just letting them know that for on-demand geofilters, there's going to be an increase in the Snapchat submission fee as the duration of their event increases or the size of the venue increases. So this is just letting them know that I also include that submission fee within their quote. So if they have a larger duration or a venue, it is going to increase the quote they receive. And I also let them know that these types of geofilters are currently not available in countries outside of the US, UK, and Canada. Then on to the next set of questions, we have the time for the geofilter. So I have the geofilter start date, the geofilter start time, what their time zone is, and then how many hours they want the geofilter to last. And for the geofilter start date, they can click here and fill in their geofilter start date, or they can just click this calendar icon and choose the specific date that they are needing for the geofilter to start. And then I like to ask, what is your time zone? Because if it's different from the time zone you're in, you're going to have to use that time zone to manually adjust the time in order to make sure it shows up at their time in their time zone. It's also important to ask how many hours they want the filter to last, just to get them to think in terms of 24 hours and less, because those are generally going to be more affordable submission fees, and this is especially important if you plan on including that submission fee within their quote. This way you'll also get them to think in geofilter submission fees that are more affordable, so when you go ahead and add it to your quote, it's going to look affordable as well. So in the next section we have a little bit of information of what they want for the geofilter. So first we have the question, what do you want the geofilter to say? And then in parentheses we have written as it should appear. Now most geofilters have some sort of message, so this is the area that they can provide that message and write it exactly as it should appear with the correct capitalization and spelling. And below that I have the question, do you have any examples of the direction you have in mind for the geofilter stylistically? So what this means is just, do they have any examples for the style that they're looking for in the geofilter? They can also include any specific colors or links to different images. And below that, we then have the option for them to upload any files that they want that they may not be able to link to. So then we have the question of what's the geofilter venue location? And right here we have the street address, the city, state, province, or region, and then the zip or postal code, as well as the country. So this is just going to get us very specific on where that area is right away without doing a lot of manual searching for names. We get the specific address that we can look up easily afterwards. And finally we have the question, is there any additional information that should be taken into consideration? And this is a catch-all statement just to make sure that if there's anything that we missed or didn't ask, that they have the opportunity to share that with us. And below that, then they can go ahead and hit submit, and that will take them to a separate page just thanking them that they submitted the form, and I will get back to them soon. And then after, I should receive an email of that request directly to my inbox, and I'll have all those sections as well as the answers to all those questions in that email as well. Now if we go back up, we can then just take a quick look at the business Geofilter section, and we can see that this form is going to be very similar to the personal Geofilter form just because they're both going to be on-demand geofilters. However, there's going to be a few differences that I'm going to be asking in here, and I'll just cover those real quick. So as you can see, the note is going to be pretty much exactly the same just because I am going to be including geofilter submission fees, and that's going to affect the quote. And these business geofilters are still not available in other countries like outside of the US, UK, and Canada. So that's going to stay the same. Now the first difference is going to be the fact that I'm asking for a business or organization name, and below that I'm asking what their business or organization does, as well as why is it important. Now this just gives me an idea of who they are, what type of business they do, and why is it important, and that kind of is going to help me when I'm designing a geofilter for them. So next, if we scroll down, we will get some of the same information such as the geofilter start date, start time, their time zone, and how many hours they want the filter to last. Next, we have some of the same information as well, what their geofilter will say, what examples do they have stylistically for the design, any specific colors or links and pictures. And then we also have a option for the geofilter venue location, as well as the address and zip code and country, as well as the final catch-all statement of if there's any additional information. So mainly the same because they're both going to be on-demand geofilters. And then they can go ahead and submit the geofilter at the bottom. And then we're going to go back up here and check out what Community Geofilter has. Now the first difference to the Community Geofilter option is the fact that I have a very different note. And this note is just letting them know that I'm currently limited in my efforts to create community geofilters, and as a result I'm very selective with the community geofilter projects that I take on. And this is because most community geofilter requests I have found are not viable because a lot of them are asking for me to do these geofilter projects for free, because these are just generally people that are looking for a geofilter for their community but don't have the money to create one. So I've just let them know that I am limited in the efforts, so I will be very selective with the projects that I take on. So if we scroll down, we'll see this new question that says, is your community geofilter for an event? And because community geofilters are mostly permanent, but you can also use them for events, this is just an option to let them know if it's going to be more of a permanent geofilter or it's just for a community event. So if they choose yes, then they'll be prompted below with questions about the start time, start date, and the time zone and how many hours they want the filter to last. However, we're going to say that our geofilter is not for an event, and once we click no, it's going to collapse that information because of the conditional logic. It recognizes that those questions are no longer applicable for our situation. So below that we have the name of the community, and this just gives an idea of the community that we're going to be designing this geofilter for. Below that we have the question, what do you want the geofilter to say, and then for it to be written exactly as it should appear. And again, this just gives us the message to include inside the geofilter, as well as the spelling and capitalization that should be included in the geofilter. Below that we then have the questions of the stylistic direction for the geofilter, as well as including any colors or examples using links or pictures. They can also include those pictures by uploading them. Next is the geofilter venue location, and for community geofilters the location tends to be a little bit bigger, so what I like to do is just use this address, whatever they put as the address, as a general guideline for where the location is. And because we asked what the name of the community is in the beginning, we can get a little bit of a better idea of where that geofence is going to lie. So after they provide that geofilter venue location, we have a few other questions that are a little bit different at the bottom. So the first new question is, what makes this community special? And the second new question is, why is this location meaningful to you? Now, the first question is a little bit more for me, just to get an idea of what makes the community special so I can include those aspects into my design. And then the second one is more of for Snapchat, as they require submission notes for each submission. So they ask specifically, why is this location meaningful to you? And so whatever they put here, I can take directly from what they've said and submit it as the submission notes because it's directly applicable for them. So these are just two separate questions that kind of help me out as well as the submission process out. And finally is if there's any additional information that should be taken into consideration. And again, this is for anything that we didn't ask. And likely this is going to be an area that they can explain where the geofilter geofence is going to be. For example, we asked what the address is for the geofilter's location. So they may just come in here and say that the address is not going to be where the geofilter is going to be. And they may just say that it's going to cover a whole city, not just that address. But this is an opportunity for them to explain that here. And then finally, they can go down to the submit button and hit submit. Then I should receive the email with all this information that I could then respond to, and we could quickly get into the project since I have all that information up front. So in the next lesson, we're going to cover what to do after you receive these requests and how to go about pricing and quoting your geofilter projects.